What's up, Pistons fans? Here to recap the Pistons' 110-105 win against the Phoenix Suns to move 2-7 on the season. For those who didn't watch, the Pistons overcame a 23-point deficit in the second quarter to come back and steal the game in overtime. And a large part of it was due to the switch from man-to-man to zone defense. Even Coach Monty Williams of the Suns mentioned that the zone defense threw them off. It was a pretty cool to see zone defense work in the NBA and be sustained for multiple quarters. It was interesting because in the NBA everyone's shooters, especially with the Suns. They have so many shooters. They have Devin Booker, even Chris Paul, Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson. All these players can shoot the basketball. Dario Saric. So it was kind of interesting to see that the zone was throwing them off. And the Suns, after a very quick shooting performance, they looked like they were out of gas. They just couldn't hit any shots, and they went from the second quarter, in the middle of the second quarter onward, they were just ice cold from the 3-pointer shooting. I believe they made 5 out of their last 34 3-pointers. So credit to the team defense on that, and a little bit of luck on the Pistons end. So then some positives from the game with our players came from, well, I hate to say it, it was our veterans. So first to start with Jerami Grant, who's like the only veteran who I'm happy to see succeed mainly. He had 31 points. He's looking like that dude for Detroit. The kid has been playing phenomenal. This was by far his best game. One of the complaints I had for Jerami Grant was his efficiency. So while he would score 24 points, and that looked cool in the box score, you'd see he's taking it on 24 shots. So it wasn't very efficient. But in this game, he was 10 and 15. He didn't even shoot much, but 10-15 and had 31 points. Just looked so impactful on the floor on both sides of the ball, and he looked like the guy for the Pistons. And his ISO game has gotten a lot better. His dribbling and his ability to get into the paint has just been phenomenal, and it's been a surprise. I don't think anyone could have expected that from him being the fourth guy in Denver. So definitely props to Jerami Grant, third or fourth guy rather, but props to Jerami Grant, and he's looking like a steal for his contract. Some other players in our starting lineup that were pretty notable. Blake Griffin, I think, had his best game as a Piston, for this season. He was hustling. He was hustling. He was diving on the floor, jumping loose balls. I mean, his knees are pretty weak, but I'm glad to see Blake Griffin really trying. I mean, he really wanted to win this game, and most of his shots weren't even the 3-pointers that we've been accustomed to. We've just been seeing. This game was more him going in the paint, being more aggressive. And, that's the Blake Griffin. I mean, we know his legs are catching up with him, and time is not on his side. But for Blake Griffin, just to see that aggressiveness, to see he can still get in the paint, it was good to see him. Some other starters, some other players that I was really impressed with was, again, Saddiq Bey. Saddiq Bey comes in overtime in fourth quarter. That's when he mainly feels impact. Comes in, hits a couple threes, hits a mid-range shot. Even in the first quarter, we finally saw Saddiq Bey take it into the lane, and I was quite scared himself that was gonna miss it, but he was able to finish in the lane, and I think that's the next step of his game, which he needs to improve on. And if he can start becoming comfortable going to the paint and finishing, he's gonna be a phenomenal NBA player. His ceiling is just increasing each game. I went from him being maybe a bench player to maybe like a sixth man to this kid can be an actual star in the league if it's given the chance by Coach Casey. So look out for Saddiq Bey. You thought he was quiet in this game, but then he comes out in overtime and just pulls the Pistons away. He hit the 3 to put him up 7 and called timeout. So props to Saddiq Bey for another great game. And also props to Delon Wright and Mason Plumlee. Obviously, I'm not very excited to see them play. I'd rather see young guys, but Delon Wright had himself a pretty good game, especially in the first quarter. He was getting all the points in the point scoring wise. I mean, you're obviously no one's excited when Delon Wright scores, but good for him, and good for Mason Plumlee too for getting to the line and improving his free throw percentage. He shot very well from the line, and he had the game time basket, and I was very glad that Jerami Grant passed it, because that was another thing with Jerami Grant. He has not really become a passer. He seems to just look for the shot for himself, but it was good to see Jerami Grant pass the ball. So hopefully that's also a sign of something new there. So then some cons, some stuff that I wasn't happy about though with this game comes with the Pistons bench. It's just kind of frustrating to see Isaiah Stewart and Sekou Doumbouya just not play in the second half. And it feels like, at least for Sekou Doumbouya, it feels like he's just falling out and out of the rotation for none of his own fault, for something that he didn't do. Like, it feels like Casey has like a grudge against Sekou, and he even hit a three. I mean, obviously he did go in the lane and threw up a prayer which didn't go in, but I really still believe that Sekou Doumbouya has a lot to show, and it's kind of frustrating to not see him get that opportunity. And it's been 7-8 games, and we've been told to wait, just trust the process, and we can, but it's becoming more and more likely that Sekou Doumbouya may not be part of this future, which is kind of sad to see. And it wouldn't surprise me if Troy Weaver pulls something out of his sleeve and ends up trading him. With the amount of time Sekou's playing, it seems like they're not really invested in him and his future. So we'll wait and see for that. Hopefully I get proven wrong, and hopefully Coach Casey plays him. But knowing Casey, he's a vets man, so he'll only plays veterans. So then along with Sekou Doumbouya, you have Isaiah Stewart, who didn't see the floor at all in the second half. And I guess I was kind of confused on that. So my reasoning, I was trying to think to myself, maybe is because when the Pistons made the run, it was with Mason Plumlee and Jahlil Okafor. But it felt like Isaiah Stewart was becoming a regular part of the rotation. He was something that you would expect to see first man off the bench. So it was kind of weird to see Isaiah Stewart. Just not play. And I mean, it ended up with the Pistons win, and it didn't hurt them in the end. But hopefully this is just like something that's for this game. That was an adjustment made for this Suns game, and then the next couple games we'll get to see Isaiah Stewart play more. And then some other things off the bench that I wasn't happy. I wasn't really happy with Derrick Rose. Unfortunately, I mean, he had some good baskets and all, but his turnovers are becoming kind of a problem. It's been a problem. He had a really good games in Milwaukee, especially that first game in Milwaukee, but this game, you could tell Javon Carter was all over him. Javon Carter was in Derrick Rose's head. He's a pest on the ball. So it was a tough game for Derrick Rose, and hopefully he also has a better game next time. But again, from Rose, I just want to see him distribute the basketball. That's kind of all I want to see him. I'm fine with him doing the ISO stuff here and there, but the missed layups and floaters, when I'd rather see the other young players miss them than D Rose. But yeah, we'll see how he does in the next game. Some other tidbits. Frank Jackson got his first time playing, and he looked solid. Honestly, had a 3-pointer. In the first half, rather, he did look solid. He had a 3-pointer, had a nice assist to Jahlil Okafor. Was playing defense. He looked pretty aggressive, but in the second half, he got like very limited minutes when he seemed like he was forcing some things, and Casey just took him right out. It's just kind of concerning. I feel like it's kind of weird how Coach Casey is letting Killian Hayes make these mistakes. He wants Killian Hayes to make these mistakes. He wants him to grow. But with the other players, like Sekou Doumbouya, Frank Jackson, and all them, he's just like, you make a mistake, you're going straight to the bench. So, hopefully we get to see more of him, especially with Killian out. I wanted to see either Frank Jackson or Saben Lee eventually take the starting job from DeLon Wright, because realistically the team is probably not going to make the playoffs. And DeLon Wright, while he's a good player, he's a solid player, I feel like he could probably get more development by starting one of those two. One more negative thing I did want to mention was also Josh Jackson. Josh Jackson had a pretty tough game. He was like 2 for 11. Coach Casey was pretty quick to take him out of the game and put Svi Mikhailuk in, who also had a pretty rough game. And yeah, with Jackson, I think the ankle injury is still kind of there. Like, he was missing a lot of shots short. He was still playing decent defense, but like, the explosiveness wasn't there. And I also think he was a bit rusty because he hadn't played since Sunday. So that probably played a factor in Jackson not having a good game. But he's one of those players who you really want to see succeed for the Pistons. He's one of those feel-good stories. So hopefully we start to see more of him in the future. I also wanted to mention for the Phoenix Suns, Langston Galloway. I was about to title this video Langston Galloway's revenge game if the Suns ended up winning this game, but they just blew it. But Langston Galloway, man, in the second quarter had 17 points, and he looked like he was looking over at the Pistons bench. He was coming in with an attitude, and it it was funny to see because like it's not like any of his teammates are there. It's only like Blake Griffin and Derrick Rose. We were still looking at the Pistons bench. So, props to Langston for having a great game and wishing him the best as a Phoenix Sun. And looks like they got themselves a hell of a player. But in Langston Galloway fashion, he was hot in the second quarter and nowhere to be seen in the second half. So that's just Langston Galloway for you. But other than that, that wraps up this breakdown for the Pistons Suns game. Overall, we're a 2-7 team, but it's probably been the most entertaining 2-7 I've seen in a while. Every game's been competitive, and there's hope for the future. And I'm really hopeful that we'll see more growth this season and hopefully more young guys. And yeah, it's been a hell of a ride. So anyway, I'll be back on Sunday to recap the Pistons and Jazz game at 3 p.m. So yeah, don't miss that. And other than that, enjoy your weekend, celebrate the Pistons wins, and yeah, take care, guys.